Former Chief Minister and PDP Chief Mehbooba Mufti was finally released from detention yesterday. This move, of course, to detain her had come after the Modi government's decision to abrogate Article 370 in the state. Now, she was among the last high-profile leaders to remain in detention. There was a lot of demand to release her, and finally that seems to have happened. What has triggered her release? What is the current state of law and order, of infiltration in the valley, and what next in Jammu and Kashmir in terms of elections, in terms of administrative decisions, in terms of politics? Do start sending in your questions. Ananya Bhardwaj is with me, who in fact was stationed in Kashmir last year for quite some time, to answer your questions in this episode of Government Matters. Ananya, so let's just talk a little bit about the detention, because let's just trace the graph a little bit. How many people and leaders were detained? What was the graph of their release? And finally, what is the status now?
Ruhi, a lot of detentions took place soon after the revocation of Article 370 on 5th August last year. What happened was that these leaders were put in detention in hotels, in centers that were made to be detention centers. In fact, a lot of resentment among political leaders, parties, lawyers on how the government can put these people at such a crucial time. How can they just put them in detention centers? So almost after 14 months now, Mehbooba Mufti has been released. In fact, when we were on the ground and we were talking to officials, the main reason they had claimed to put these leaders behind bars was to maintain law and order, because what they had expected was a lot of anger and people coming out on roads, and that is why a lot of force in fact was also moved to Jammu and Kashmir. What they are now saying is that since we have on the ground assessed that the situation, law and order situation, is coming under control, so we have been seeing these measures like withdrawal of around 100 CAPF companies, that is about 10,000 personnel by the Ministry of Home Affairs recently. Then they had moved a lot of these politicians from detention centers to their homes under house arrest. Now what the government is claiming is that no leader is under house arrest. However, there are 223 political activist lawyers who are still under detention under the Public Safety Act. Now, Mehbooba Mufti, Umar Abdullah and 3 others were also detained under the Public Safety Act, which again is a very stringent act. But now it has been revoked for Mehbooba Mufti, and she is now at home. In fact, soon after her release, she even gave out a statement saying that whatever her government did on the 5th of August was unfair, and she is not going to keep quiet about it.
In fact, she is also, she also met Farooq Abdullah and Umar Abdullah and agreed to be a part of the Gupkar resolution.
Right.
So, Ananya, as you mentioned that the government is more confident of being in control of the situation on the ground in the valley right now. Are there still constant reviews happening? Are there teams going from the center to assess the situation on the ground?
One team, in fact, is stationed in Kashmir, Ruhi, as far as the intelligence inputs that are constantly coming from Kashmir, and a report is submitted every week to the Ministry of Home Affairs. We've also been seeing a lot of encounters happening in this year. In fact, in the year 2020 till about September, the number of encounters, the operations and alleged terrorists killed in these operations have superseded the number that was together in 2019. So in just 2020, we have about 72 operations. The forces have done 72 operations in which about 177 terrorists have died. Now they're also claiming that around 25-26 of them were foreigners, that is from Pakistan. And the infiltration also, the government in fact gave out data in the parliament recently saying that the infiltration also has reduced. The attempts have come down. But Ruhi, on the ground, from the inputs that we get from intelligence agencies and the forces, the figures are somewhere clashing, because infiltration attempts that are being made according to intel inputs are continuously, they have not reduced, and there have been in fact a number of people who have been coming, but on the other side the encounters have also increased. Another thing is that these encounters have also been suspicious, because one civilian got killed recently in an encounter. Then in an encounter in Shopian, we saw 3 people who were killed later their families came out saying that they had filed a missing complaint against them. They were all locals and these encounters were not genuine. So whenever these encounters happen, of course, these allegations crop up. But yes, we've been seeing an increase in the number of action as far as the forces are concerned, encounters are concerned. But the infiltration also, on the other hand, has not stopped.
Right. Now, the big thing in Kashmir, Ananya, are now the elections. That's what the buzz is, but which has to be preceded by the delimitation exercise.
Yeah.
So, what is the status of these two?
So, Ruhi, on 15th August, in fact, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had announced that J&K will soon have their own MLAs. Now, that exercise will happen once the delimitation process is over. The deadline for that is March 2021.
Okay.
So we still, the delimitation process is still on. So what they've said is that there will be increasing number of assembly seats from 107 to 114. This would also include seats from Pakistan occupied Kashmir. So that process is still on. Once that is done, only then the election, which
will take place.
Modi said would take place. However, the panchayat election that had been long due in the state, recently we saw some development in that. They're saying that they may happen in November, because in panchayat elections also there are a lot of seats that are vacant. So many of them sarpanches who were made actually stood in the election unopposed. Then a lot of panches and sarpanches, the positions are vacant. So that, in fact, after this was announced that the election of panchayats is going to happen soon, there were a lot of attacks on the panches and sarpanches that increased in Kashmir. A lot of BJP sarpanches were shot dead. So all of that is happening, but now what we can expect is soon a date for panchayat election in the coming months.
All right. Okay. So Junaid Khan, do you think common Kashmiris really want Article 370 back? Is there a pressure on Muftis and Abdullahs to fight to get it back, rather than active Indian politics to develop the state? So you were on the ground, so you perhaps are equipped enough to answer this question.
So Ruhi, yes, in fact, when I was on the ground soon after the abrogation of Article 370, we could sense the kind of anger in people, because what they said was that even if the government is claiming that this is for us, it's going to lead to development, because there are a lot of big promises. AIMS is going to come up, IIMs are going to come, IITs are going to be there. But this, they said, appears like something that we've been backstabbed. So this is something that was a special status given to us, promised to us, and now you've just taken it back in one go
without any consultation. Right.
So you have not consulted anyone. You've put our leaders you've confined them, you've detained them, and then you have done this. So this was in fact not received very well on the ground. And there were a lot of incidents of stone pelting that started. In fact, in Sora, where we had gone in downtown, there were clashes that were reported. But obviously it did not lead to a major law and order problem, but a major reason for that was the positioning of forces in Kashmir. Heavy presence of forces in Kashmir. In fact, the curfew was so stringent that nobody was even allowed to move out. In fact, even the media had so much problem moving around reporting. So anytime, anywhere, in any corner, the stone pelting would start. So at that point of time, the anger was quite visible. But till now, any major, say, terror attack or any major sort of law and order issue has not been
arisen.
reported.
But that's also because of the presence of forces perhaps on the ground. Right. Okay. Arthik J, will there be a special package for Kashmir so that Kashmiri leaders can show something to the people and regain support? So there are all these various special packages that have already been...
In fact, government has also announced a lot of packages, development projects, then jobs. We had also, in fact, really done a story when the year completed on 5th August this year, talking about various projects that had started, which were promised, but then because of COVID, a lot of them were stalled. Then there was an investor summit that was to happen, that also got stalled. The law and order situation also is not very conducive for investors to go and do the summit. I think that was also another reason why the date has been postponed and a new date has not been announced yet. Another important bit about this is that the law and order situation, whatever it will be, the reports are duly being generated on the ground by intelligencies and are being conveyed to the center for further action. So
Right.
that is what is happening.
All right. What do you think the government strategy will be to restore trust in Kashmir? I think you've already answered that. Joe Sebastian, do you think the centre and the security agencies have any kind of leverage on the Kashmiri politicians? Do you think they made a deal, or was the centre under pressure to release them? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the release. You know, how was it? And I'm sure it's not. There is no decisive or cohesive answer to this. But just to venture a guess, how was the timing of the release decided? I mean, how is it that you know, the Abdullahs were released so much earlier and Mehbooba Mufti continued to remain in detention?
Ruhi, I think the plan was to space it out. So it is not that they're going to release everyone together. So in fact, some leaders were released early on. Then we saw Umar Abdullah. Then we saw the Saifuddin Soz, and now Mehbooba Mufti. They spaced it out. In fact, again, these also depend on the kind of inputs that they have been receiving from the ground. From what we heard was that a new political party is also emerging in Jammu and Kashmir. Earlier, the people were not ready to trust that party, but now it is gaining base there. So, from what we gather from the Ministry of Home Affairs is that this was planned. In fact, we have also been questioning them about when the internet will be restored.
Right.
If you are saying
Right.
that the law and order situation is fine, you're releasing all the prisoners, 223 of them are still in detention, but you know, most of the high profile ones have been released. No one is under house arrest. So when the internet is going to be restored, so that's what they say, that we are spacing out these. So it's going to happen gradually. It is happening. So every now and then they do give some sort of leniency that this is now what we are going to do. So Mehbooba Mufti
some
is
relaxation of curb gradually.
gradually. So,
So,
Mehbooba Mufti's
but now
release also
you
came.
say that there are other detainees as well, still continue to remain in detention. Again, what is the rationale? Are they? Does the centre consider them to be more volatile than the leaders they
So really
released?
what had happened was after abrogation of 350, they had 370, they had detained a whole lot of people. These included the overground workers, the stone pelters who have been in detention or were arrested in earlier cases, whoever they think could be troublemakers. So, PSA, what you can do is that you don't have to detain them in Kashmir only. So they are also people who are detained under the PSA in UP.
Right.
So there are different
Agra,
jails.
in fact,
Agra, yes, Agra, Bareilly. So these jails also. So there are some people who still remain under detention. However, what happens under PSAs are regular reviews. So their detention is also being reviewed. And from what we get to know from authorities is that they are also under the process of, say, releasing them gradually. So if they think that they can now release them, they're going to do it after reviews. So these reviews happen every week.
Right.
So that is what is, the process is ongoing, but still 223 people are out of the thousands that were detained in prisons.
So Ananya, there were these high-profile visits, and you know the one that made most news was Mr. Ajit Doval eating biryani with locals, or so they said, locals. No more high-profile visits. Where is Mr. Doval?
Ruhi, I think he's busy with China right now, but yes, no high-profile visits. We see Mr. Doval every now and then propping up. Once we saw him in Kashmir. The next time we saw him in Northeast Delhi after the riots.
Crisis management.
Crisis management. The third time we saw him was in Nizamuddin meeting Mohammad Saad, the Tablighi chief. So yes, he works in the background. His office, in fact, claims that agencies that are in Kashmir regarding cross-border, these infiltrations or any sort of security arrangements in the area. However, no visits have happened till now. In fact, from what we heard was that Mr. Amit Shah was to visit Kashmir, in fact, on the anniversary. That also did not happen.
I think it's health issues also.
Health issues also, and then this entire COVID thing, that also didn't happen. But soon, I think, after things get normalized, Amit Shah plans to visit Kashmir once. Yes.
Right. Well, Ananya, thank you so much for being with us on Government Matters 2 days in a row. Just in case the viewers are wondering if ThePrint has made, uniform masks. No, it's just a coincidence, purely a coincidence. But thank you so much for watching Government Matters, as always, for sending in so many questions. Keep subscribing to our YouTube channel. You can like our Facebook page and also follow us on Twitter.